Serious. Men have read it. We hear all about horror stories about how crazy men can be when rejected, but what's been your crazy experience when you rejected a woman? Story 1. Does after a breakup count? If so, I was graduating from a master's, had low self-esteem, and my ex was really hinting that she wanted to get married. I didn't. Was super clear on that. She broke it off right before I went to visit my parents for about a week. I was a bit bummed out on the way home and a couple of days after. Then she called and said she wanted to talk when I got back. By then, I had the feeling she would want to get back together if we got engaged or married. And that's exactly what happened. When I got back, she acted like everything was fine and talked about us getting serious. After that, we went, sat down, and told her it was over. I was pissed. She was on the verge of ending it all, and she even ran to the kitchen and threatened to do it there. I pulled it away after getting hurt myself and locked her in my bathroom where nothing sharp was there and called a friend of mine to give us a ride so I could leave her at her house. At that point, I didn't want to leave her in a cab and act crazy and missing or something. That's not the end of it. It had just begun. The next morning, I wake up to 30 texts and 5 missed calls, and I decided to ignore them. It escalated to 40 a day and 20 missed calls for about a week. The note's in my car. Then a friend of hers started coming to my house to talk to me and say what went wrong and apologize for her. I told her I would not get back together with her. When that didn't happen, she sent 2 friends of hers to rough me up. Luckily, my friends were in my apartment and they backed off. The next morning, I had 2 slashed tires in my car. Almost missed a job interview. She would stalk me by staying at a cafe across the street from my place for hours, monitoring who came in and who came out and what time. The final straw was when, after about 3 months passed, I started dating a girl and we went to my apartment to DVD and chill. I got a call about an hour in. It was a friend of mine saying that he got a call from my ex saying that the girl with the brown hair and red blouse, exactly the description, was too ugly for me and she wanted to mess her up. I ended up making her a nice dinner and had a bottle of wine so I could make time for her to eventually leave her post at the cafe. I ended up changing my car, apartment, cell phone, and emails, and after that, I haven't heard from her since. The rough-up situation sounds hilarious. I just imagine 2 guys knocking on your door all hard and threatening you when you answer it. Then you just slowly open the door and you have a bunch of friends over watching the game. Story 2. When I was in high school, this girl had a major crush on me and decided to write me a note one day. She found my picture in the yearbook, but due to a printing error, the wrong name was next to my picture. She had someone give me the note, addressed to the wrong yearbook name, and it was just going on and on about how she's in love with me and all that. I honestly thought the girl was attractive. She was weird, but kind of 90s short hair alternative cute. She was 2 grades below me, but I went up and introduced myself and we became friends. She confided in me one day that she had never kissed anyone. I said I would show her. Smooth, right? So we kissed for a little while at a friend's house and things were fun. Then things kind of turned. The next day she asked me out and I said that I thought we were good friends and didn't think going out was a good idea. Let me stop here and say this was stupid teenager peer pressure BS. All of my friends thought she was super weird and kind of made fun of me for kissing her. If they weren't around, I might have had gone out with her because I liked her, but I let my friends get in my head. After I told her that, she burst into tears, like full-on uncontrollable sobbing in the lunchroom. I felt really bad because I wasn't a guy who had ever had to turn a girl down. I wasn't some ladies' man and I had been where she was, and I felt terrible. The next few days, there were cry-filled calls begging me to date her, that we were perfect together. I worked at Kmart at the time, and she would call my work crying. Then she called my house when I wasn't home and talked to my mother, and my brother, and my stepfather. Then she started calling my friends and asking them to convince me. Then one night she showed up at Kmart wearing a big overcoat with nothing on under it. She had started getting very overly intimate in the sobbing phone calls, saying she wanted me to take her V-card, and just getting super dirty. She wanted me to help her at work in the parking lot when I got off. I declined. Then in her call, she was saying she wanted to have a family with me and what our kids would look like, and it was starting to get a little bizarre. I began thinking something is not right about this. Maybe she had mental issues. Her mother eventually got in contact with my mother and asked her why I was her daughter. My mother laughed and jokingly said, "My son is terrified of your daughter," and told her that she legit called 10 times a night. Apparently, she had her mom convinced I was the one going after her. The one day, the call stopped over the summer. No more random visits at work. It turns out she was having some kind of psychotic breakdown. She had made a shrine to me in her closet with pictures of me. From where, I have no idea. And articles of my clothes she somehow got. The breaking point was that she had been taken advantage of by a much older man when she told him that I didn't like her because she wasn't experienced enough, even when I didn't have any myself. She went away to a hospital and I didn't see her for years. Fast forward 3 years and I'm at a club and a group of hot chicks walk into the bar area, and there she is with them. And she was freaking gorgeous. I didn't know if I should talk to her because I was the cause of her breakdown, so I just took my drink and sat across the room. She was way out of my league now, and her friends were equally beautiful. She spots me about a half hour walking in and makes her way over to me. She's totally nice and isn't weird at all. We talk for a while and she tells me she went to live with an uncle in New York when she got out of the hospital. Her uncle worked as an assistant to some famous photographer and he discovered her and started working as a model while living in New York City and going to school. Her friends were also models. They were her roommates and had come with her to meet her family on vacation. Turns out she ended up much better off than I did. I still talk to her on Facebook from time to time. She is now a mom with 2 kids and a cool little family, and she's still amazing looking.
If you two are asking what that is, it's the sponsor of today's video, Rufus Rugs. We've been hard at work, creating the best quality and premium hand-tufted rugs money can buy. Now there's a chance you own a carpet that looks something like this. Let's just be real, it's time for an upgrade. And luckily for you, me and the boys from Rufus Rugs are at your service. We don't make those average cheap quality looking rugs. Nope, not gonna happen. Each one is handcrafted to perfection. No shortcuts, no robot assembly lines, and no dropshipping BS. Just pure rug grind. Whether you love anime, sports, cars, or anything else you can think of, we can turn it into a rug. So click the first link in the description and have your custom idea come to life.
Story 3. In my sophomore year of college, there was a girl I ran into from time to time at a school with roughly 3,000 students. Every time we ran into each other, we'd exchange casual greetings and go our separate ways. A mutual friend told me to be careful because she was really into me. I actually laughed it off because we'd never had an actual conversation and I didn't even know her last name. Big mistake. One night she showed up on my doorstep, buzzed and wearing a short dress, and pounds on the front door until my housemate goes and wakes me up. I was half asleep and she asked me to walk her back to her dorm. I protest, but she insists that she doesn't feel safe and needs me to escort her. I groggily walk her back to the other side of campus, and when we get to her room, she darts in, tells her roommate to leave, and invites me inside. I politely refuse and she gets more aggressive and insistent. I leave the dorm and start heading back when she catches up to me and says she will escort me back to my place. Most of the trip was an awkward silence, but towards the end, she started complaining about how cold it was. At this point, I'm mostly awake and really annoyed, so I tell her she's acting crazy and needs to go to bed. She didn't like that. It triggered something in her and I took a flailing punch to the face, followed by scratching me. She was a small girl, and after the initial shock, it was pretty easy to catch her wrists and restrain her. I asked her what she was doing and she just laughed. I let her go, walked quickly to my front door, and as I was closing it, I heard her asking if I was going to invite her in. After I closed my door, she stood out there for a good 5 minutes before leaving. My housemates were stunned when they saw the scratch marks. It looked like a cat had attacked me, especially around the neck area. It was such a surprise attack, it didn't hurt when she actually did it. I cleaned myself up and went to bed. I honestly don't know what to make of it to this day. I've never met anyone like her since. Story 4. I was relatively good-looking and popular in high school and was aware that girls liked me. One of those girls was someone I was studying for an AP exam with. She lived a couple of blocks away and would come over when I got home from baseball practice. One night we were quizzing each other and she said something to the extent of, "If you get all of them right, I'll let you kiss me." I did not get them all right, but she told me I could kiss her anyway. I just kind of chuckled, told her, nope, I had to get them all right. I went back to studying. Later that night, she sent me an email about how she views me as more than a friend and wanted to know if I felt the same way. She was a cool girl and I liked hanging out with her, but I didn't want to date her, so I told her how I value our friendship, etc. I get that it was a cliche response, but rather than accepting it gracefully, she told her AP US history teacher I was her. Her AP US history teacher was also my baseball coach. Now, if you watch American teen movies but didn't play sports, you probably think my teacher or coach told her he would speak to me about it, then we had a good laugh in the locker room. If you played sports, you're probably aware that I was benched from a game and spent the next couple of practices running laps around the perimeter of the field. Guess that's not really a horror story per se, but it was still a crappy thing to do just because a guy turned you down. His coach and teacher never asked his side of it, or for evidence of what she said. I would have sued them bankrupt. If you would have done the same thing, leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 5. There was this girl who used to hang out with most of my friends, and there were a few occasions when she got buzzed and came on to me. The worst event happened when we were all at my house having fun. At first, she was just being flirtatious, but the more she drank, the louder and more obnoxious her advances became, to the point where she was just repeating, "Hey, let me give it to you." The strategy was to laugh and brush it off, hoping not to agitate whatever primal instincts were fueling that flame in her loins. Eventually, she got up from the couch, gave me this sort of determined look, said something like, "I'm just gonna go for it," then started rushing over to me when she slipped and straight-face planted on the hardwood floor. The floor itself had a crawl space underneath, so that reverberated like a bag of bricks just got dropped. While everyone was pointing and laughing, I went and hid in my room, and for the next hour or so, could hear her wandering around looking for me, yelling and saying weird stuff. Eventually, she left, and from what I've seen on her Facebook, it looked like she quit drinking and is doing better today. No more weird advances. Story 6. I dated a girl for a couple of weeks, and on our third date, we chilled at my place and talked. She told me that she thought men who watched stuff were disgusting, and if they were in a relationship, it was cheating. 10 minutes later, she, out of nowhere, asked to use my computer. I knew the last thing I had opened was not going to impress her, so I said maybe some other time. She got way too angry at this and said her intention was to write me an email about how much she liked me. BS. When I said I thought it would be best to call it a night and drove her home, she went quiet until about halfway there when she said, "My dad's best friend is a cop. I can say what I want." I got the gist, but figured it was an attempt to make me reconsider. I dropped her off and she started crying very loudly, fell down in her parents' driveway and crawled to the front door. Sure enough, the next day I was arrested, and it took a week for her to admit she made it up, but the charges weren't dropped for 7 months. Story 7. She was overly cheery, kind of a princess type, not used to being told no. We'll call her Princess. So at a college party at my buddy's apartment, she was coming on to me. I was not interested in her. I was much more interested in another girl who was discussing the merits of how taxation is a form of theft with a circle of people playing cards. We'll call her Porcupine. Well, after trying to ignore Princess for 25 minutes, Princess decided I was playing hard to get. She accidentally spills her drink on me and offers to help me dry off. I decline and ask my buddy if I can go grab a shirt from his room. I went into his room to grab a shirt, and I guess she followed me because she wrapped her hands around me from behind. I slipped out and told her to get away from me, but she wasn't having it and blocked the door. She then said if I tried to push past her, she'd tell everyone I attacked her, and who were they going to believe? This is the scenario every guy dreads, because she's right. If she claimed I attacked her, there was no way in hell they'd believe me as a naive, introverted computer major guy over a pretty popular social butterfly half my size. Thankfully, Porcupine had come looking for me as it was my turn and it was taking me so long to change a shirt. She overheard it and told Princess to get out of the room, which begrudgingly she does, but it's the only time a girl tried to coerce me like that. And now we enter TIFU territory. I, believing Porcupine was looking for me for more than cards, thank you alcohol and impaired judgment, made a move on Porcupine. Porcupine plays for the other team. I make a complete jerk out of myself in front of her. Thankfully, she took it well, politely rejected me and told her girlfriend would be very upset with her. She went back to playing cards and my face was red as a Coke can. At least Porcupine can have a laugh about it later if she saw how red he was. Story 8. I was dating a girl. She was 20 and I was 22 at the time, and things were clearly not working out. The only thing keeping me from ending things was that I had left my favorite John Mayer hoodie at her place and couldn't figure out how to get it back without a whole bunch of awkward. I decide there's no way around it, so I call her to tell her that it isn't working out, that we need to end things, and that I'm coming over to get my sweatshirt, but she can leave it on her porch if she does not want to talk to me or see me. No luck there. I pull up to her house and she's standing in her front yard. My hoodie's lying behind her in the grass. I get out of my car and before I can say anything, she starts yelling at me. I should mention that it was a nice mid-June evening, and many of her neighbors in this idyllic picture of suburbia were sitting in their porches and got to witness all of this. This goes on for around 13 minutes, non-stop, with her going on and on while I say nothing. Finally, she runs out of things to yell, and as she's finally catching her breath, I ask, "Can I have my hoodie back?" She throws it at me, and I bolt for the car and out of the driveway before she can start up again. The hoodie was unharmed. Story 9. There was this girl, we'll call her Stacy, at work, who secretly had a crush on me 2 years before I found out and she was fired. I guess everything that I'm about to type out here happened because of 2 factors. I was able to take my lunch break early, putting her in my lunch break at the same time, and my girlfriend wanted to have lunch with me at work. I guess Stacy and I talking regularly almost every day is another factor as well. As I was walking to my car to go home, Stacy approached me from behind and asked, "Who is that woman with you at lunch?" When I explained it was my girlfriend, Stacy started making a huge deal about my girlfriend being Asian, which was strange because Stacy's the exact same type of Asian, Vietnamese. Explaining that to her did seem to smooth everything over. Feeling confused and seeing no way to recover from the conversation, I said I had to get home and leave. The next day, Stacy wasn't there, which was nice because she made the previous day awkward and I had no clue why at that point. The next week, Stacy was still not back. One of her team members, Tammy, decided to ask me why Stacy needed to take such a long break. This question threw me off guard and confused me even more. But I answered with, "Why would I know anything about that? Stacy and I only talk at work. I don't even have her number." At this point, it was hard to tell who was more confused, Tammy or me. I could literally see the gears turning in Tammy's head as she was trying to formulate her next question. Eventually, it comes out. "I thought you and Stacy were going out. She tells us about all the amazing dates you go on all the time." Tammy then proceeded to tell me about some of these dates. These were all dates that I had taken my girlfriend on and told Stacy about. My mouth and throat were completely dry. I felt like throwing up. Stacy had constructed a life with me doing things with her that I do with my actual girlfriend and then presented this to her team. I told Tammy that I do in fact have a girlfriend and that Stacy's not her. I pulled out my phone and showed Tammy pictures of my girlfriend and I together. While my girlfriend and Stacy share similar heights and builds, my girlfriend is porcelain white and Stacy's on the darker side. There are other differences, but those are the ones that would be immediately noticeable. Tammy was probably more confused than I was at that moment and seemed to slink away back to her team. Stacy showed up the following week and refused to make eye contact with me when walking into the building, which was preferable at that time anyway. About an hour later, she was escorted out of the building by my boss, the head of security. Stacy was clearly pissed off. Apparently, Tammy confronted Stacy about her fantasies before Stacy could even get to her desk. Stacy had a meltdown and attacked Tammy. I have no clue why Stacy was obsessed with me in the way she was. Stacy is extremely attractive and fit. During that time, I was a 275 to 310-pound blob. Stacy was making around $75,000 a year, and I'm a security guard barely making $40,000. I'm also into really nerdy stuff that I know Stacy has a dislike for, like Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40k, and MMORPGs. But I guess you can't try and fit crazy into a box. Anyway, this all concluded 6 months ago, and Stacy has basically dropped off the face of the earth. Story 10. Went on one very low-key date that she asked me on and let her know as gently as possible that I wasn't feeling it. This chick just pulled all sorts of stuff, showing up at random places where I was, pretending it was a coincidence, calls from different numbers, making fake social media accounts to not only try to contact me, but also befriend my friends. Threats, made up friends and relatives dying, posting photos of me unaware she was nearby, made up boyfriends to try to elicit jealousy, even a fake pregnancy scare from one of said fake boyfriends. Really didn't understand how she thought that one was going to sway my opinion. This sort of stuff went on for a while until I moved away for unrelated reasons. This was many years ago now and I can't even remember her name. I hope she has forgotten mine as well. Another woman pulled the I'm pregnant card on me after a breakup. A positive test in hand and everything. Drove her to a clinic for a professional test. She wasn't, of course, but what a crappy tactic. Smart move. You can buy joke pregnancy tests off of Amazon that always show a positive result. Better to rely on a clinic than a home test that could be fake. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. What was your "are you serious" moment? Story 4 was messed up. See you in that video.